All right, my friends, here we are in January 2024, Vibrant Entrepreneurs Circle Gathering. And I am delighted to bring once again Ginny Robertson as our guest speaker. And we're here with other people who are at our gathering, but you get to hear from Ginny because she's amazing. She won this guest speaker spot. And I love to share her. So, let me say a couple of words about you, Jenny, and then I'll ask you whatever it is that you want to talk to us about. Okay. So, Ginny Robertson is the founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community. She started that back in like 1999, 2000, something like that. And I joined in 2001. So, I have known Ginny for a very long time. She is the publisher of the On Purpose Woman magazine. And she is just an all round amazing on purpose woman who cares about all of us and wants us all to thrive. So thank you, Jenny, for all that you do by shining the light on us and everything that you do. So, my friend, what is it that you want to talk to us about today?
Well, first I have a question. Does it look like I'm looking in the camera because I'm really kind of off here? I'm looking at you, Kathryn, am I?
You look great.
Okay, because I'm off with the two and then my seat's not quite here. So I don't want to be looking all over the place. Kathryn,
Too
you know
funny.
me.
So it's just for your information. In addition to you looking great, thank you, Ilka. It's hard to see exactly where your eyes are because of the light. So yeah, I don't know. I know Jenny knows this already, so she's probably tried it. If you tip up your that part of your glasses, if you have them, sometimes that can help.
My hair isn't as thick as yours, so it'll start to go down a little bit at a time. So
We all care about how we look, don't we?
exactly. Well, Kathryn, you know, there's a million things I could talk about, right?
Mhm.
And I started thinking about it yesterday. What do I really want to say? And I want to talk about conscious networking. And the one thing that I think helps us to be a conscious networker, and that is being a great listener. So raise your hand. I can see, I think all of you there. If you think you're a great listener, raise your hand. Okay, so all of you pretty much think you're a great listener. So studies show that most people aren't great listeners and only remember 50% of a conversation immediately after they have it. And 48 hours later, about 25% of people remember the conversation. And Stephen Covey said that most of us do not listen with the intent to understand. We listen with the intent to respond. And I know I was guilty of that so much for especially the first 35 years of my life. I would be talking to somebody, I would be crafting my response. What was I going to say to them, hoping they would stop talking soon so I could get my words in. And that's not very effective because I wouldn't know what they'd said. I wouldn't know who they were. I wouldn't know what they were talking about. And whether they knew that's what I was doing or not, it was not respectful to their time or to me. And so I think true, what I like to call generous deep listening is one of the most important skills we can have. And according to Stephen Covey, only a small percentage of us have it. And I know there's also been studies where people think they're a great listener, and when they go through these steps or go through some kind of testing, they realize they're like at 30%. So I think we all have different things about what we think great listening means. We have to not just listen to what's being said, we have to listen so we can hear that deeper thing that's going on. We have to pay attention so we see the nuance of what the people are doing or saying or how they're expressing themselves. And it's especially important when we're in spaces like this and we are meeting new people. You know, it's much easier, I think, to make those connections in person because you can see body language easier. You can see there's not that distraction of everybody's face there. There's one-on-one, and I think we lean in and can listen more deeply. But I think whether we do it in person or on Zoom, we can really enhance our skills in that way. I have a favorite poet who I can't think of the name of his book now, but it's a daily guide. And I'm going to read what he said. I just love this. See if you can like lean into the deliciousness of this quote. To listen is to continually give up all expectation and to give our attention completely and freshly to what is before us, not really knowing what we'll hear or what it will mean. In the practice of our days, to listen is to lean in softly with the willingness to be changed by what we hear. Now, who wants to be listened to in that way, right? That we all want to be heard, like not, I mean, knowing that people could be changed by what we're saying, but who also wants to be that listener where we're the ones leaning in and going, oh yeah. I mean, we don't know, right? And so we have to just, I guess generous listening is a faith-based position. We're trusting that there's going to be something there for us. And so I think one of the best ways to listen, whether we're in person or on Zoom, is to give ourselves the opportunity to get fully present, to try not to think about what just happened before we got on Zoom, what's going to happen next, what's that person doing over here, what's a distraction over there, and to really be here and to be leaning in and paying attention to the speaker. So I have a request for those of you who are here with me on Zoom. For the next 15 seconds or so, I would love for all of you to show me that you're listening deeply to everything that I'm saying. And there's lots of ways we can do this. So show me some of those ways. I guess I should keep talking so you can show me some of those ways. Because when we feel like we're being seen, that's why I think it's so important to have our cameras on. We feel like we're being seen, that gives me energy. And when I see Sandra nodding her head like this, it gets either she's agreeing with me or she understands what I just said. She could be empathizing with me. Just gave me a heart that tells me something. When somebody goes like this, it means, oh, yeah, I like that. Oh, me too, kind of thing. Because every time that we speak, we really want to resonate with the people who are listening, don't we?
Yes.
Yes. And so when we're in person, eye contact, facial expressions, all of that stuff really takes less effort than we were in an environment like this on Zoom. But we can show how engaged we are on Zoom simply by some of the things you just did. I'm not the best person to look in the chat when I'm speaking because I get so involved in all of you that I'm not. But, putting something in the chat that says, oh, I like that, or repeating what somebody said in the chat and kind of with an emphasis on it is one way we can show that we're engaged. This, nodding your head, just getting excited, whatever you want to do, just don't sit there like this, or it looks like you're looking down. You could be taking notes. That could be taking notes. That could be something so brilliant that you're writing things down. But I can tell when people are doing something else, when they're multitasking. And I don't know why anyone would come on a Zoom call if you're not going to be fully present, because you're kind of wasting your time. Because here's what I've discovered over the years. Multitasking is a myth. When we multitask, we're doing both things. And I'm going to curse here for a second, half-assed, right? And that came to me about 30 years ago. I was on the phone with my niece, who's only 6 years younger, and she's my best friend. And she was talking, I was checking email, and I realized she'd stopped talking. And I'm like, oh no, she probably asked me a question or she's waiting for me to respond. And so I said, I'm really sorry. I was checking email, and that is so disrespectful. And I felt really kind of got the impact of what that was and how I thought I was saving time. When I realized later, I still had to go back and read those emails again. It saved me nothing. It was disrespectful, and I missed a moment with her. And so that, in fact, I wrote an article for my magazine about it because I called it the myth of multitasking. Because if we're sitting here doing something else, we're not present. And so why come? Why not just stay and do that work? Because you're going to do that work 100% rather than do both things, maybe 70-30 or even 50-50.
Jump in for a second. Is that
sure,
okay? So is Ginny brilliant? Or I'm reading the comments. Everybody's saying you're brilliant. I mean, this is so brilliant and so simple. So I want to just tie back to what you originally said, which was conscious networking.
Mhm.
I mean, I I believe that as entrepreneurs, networking is an incredible skill to develop. Would y'all agree with me? And you tie doing it consciously, consciousness. And that's not a throwaway word, conscious networking. It's doing it in a way that's intentional and thoughtful and we mean to do it. So what I'm hearing so far, because you're not done, and I want to hear everything that you prepared with this one skill of generous listening, it's a way to practice conscious networking. It's a piece of the whole thing. Is that what you're telling us?
That's what I'm telling you. I could have
Okay.
done a list of 5 things you can be conscious, but I wanted to concentrate on this one thing that I think it's the most important one, because without that, I think we've just wasted our time, our money, our energy, and all of that by showing up and really having nothing to show for it later.
Yeah. So okay, I know you've got more to say, but what can happen if I'm listening generously? Because I'm selfish. I want to grow my business. And if I'm listening to other people, I know what I've experienced in the past can happen, but I want to hear it from the brilliant Ginny. What can happen?
Well, let's just say that everyone who shows up to play, and let's use Zoom as an example, is not going to be on the same page with that. So sometimes you may be in a breakout session, especially where somebody monopolizes the conversation. They're not paying attention to the rules, if you will. Nobody did that today in my room, just so you know. But they're not paying attention to the guidelines, and they're just doing their sales pitch, and you feel like you're getting sold to. There's a tendency to shut down, right? And that's not really generous listening. So I think in those moments, we have to really still practice being present, because the more we practice, the easier it gets. And what I found myself also doing sometimes is making a decision about someone before they even speak. Anybody else ever do that? Just maybe because of something I've judged them for, like in the big room, we go in, I'm like, oh, I really didn't want to be in here with this person. Guess what the universe just showed me, right? And so I think when we're in that state, we've already made a judgment. We've already decided who they are. There's no way we're going to hear what they have to say. You know, I remember I go to another group sometimes, and occasionally they'll have a few men in the group, and men are not my people. I've got a great guy next door here with me, but they're not my business people. And I got in a room with this guy, and I thought, oh, you know, and then he started talking. It's like I really liked him, and I really liked the work that he does. And I discovered by listening that he was so heart-centered. And so, but if I just kept shut down with that, oh, this is going to be, why am I in a room with guys? I don't know if that makes sense to you all, or if anybody besides me ever does that. But yeah, we have to listen deeply in order to get a sense of who the person is, because how will we know if there's anything to do next? You know, not everybody's our people, not everybody's a potential client or a friend or even a connection that we want to continue with. But I feel like I'm hurting myself if I'm not listening generously. The other person may never know, but I'm hurting myself because I am an extremely curious person. And curiosity is really important when you're listening generously. You have to be curious about, I wonder how she started to do that. Oh, I wonder, wow. And then when there's time for questions, you actually have some questions, because it's the other thing. When you're listening generously, you can come up with some great questions. If you're not, you'll be sitting there going, I don't know, because you were too busy thinking about what you were going to say, because you're, you know, especially if you're in one of those rooms where, you know, it's going around, oh, I'm next, and you're all up in your head wanting to get your spiel just right. So I've got how much time do I have, Kathryn?
Let's start to wrap up in about 2 minutes.
Okay. So what's the most important thing I want to leave you with here? Let me see. I actually had some notes. I looked at them once, I think. So we all want to be seen and heard. I think that's the most important thing to remember, whether in any kind of relationship we're in. And also, I mean, personal relationships, deep listening is a necessity. It just is, because that's where all the issues start, because somebody thought they heard something different, or somebody didn't listen well enough to respond in the right way. And so I think ego has to come out of it some when we're in deep listening. We have to believe that the person has something important to say, and we're going to lean in and listen. And then if they didn't say something that resonated with us, then all we lost was our few minutes because we probably got something else out of the meeting. I want to leave with another quote, which I love. It's by a columnist named Doug Larson, who wrote, "Wisdom is the reward you get for a lifetime of listening when you would have preferred to have talked."
Yep. Mhm.
And thank you,
Mhm.
Kathryn.
Thank you, Jenny. So, my friends who are here with us live, think about what you want to ask or say to Jenny. But if you're watching us on Facebook Live, if you want to know more about Jenny and the On Purpose Women Global Community, go to opwgc.com, which stands for On Purpose Women Global Community. And there's all kinds of great information. And she has tons of meetings, networking opportunities, gatherings every month on Zoom, and some in person if you're lucky. And so go check it out. Join us there as well.